What is going on, AMC stock family? In today's video, this is going to be a little bit more serious than some other videos just because we have earnings on Monday, August 9th for AMC stock. So therefore, this earnings is going to be like none other just because right now the time AMC is in a different time because it does not have a lot of difficulties that it used to have. In other words, more people were able to go to the theaters, and so we will understand how well did AMC stock actually do throughout the quarter two of the earnings season. And so, with this being said, we are now going to quickly talk about some of the fundamentals for AMC. And I do hear the argument sometimes that fundamentals do not matter. But let me tell you this, guys, when there are institutions and when there are corporations betting and having their own estimates and predictions for what AMC stock, how they are doing fundamentally, if they decide AMC stock to beat those fundamental expectations, what do you think is going to happen to any equity? Obviously, that underlying equity is probably going to increase in share price. Now, we are going to talk about some controversies. There are two bets that could be happening. One of the bets is that AMC stock, they have good earnings, but some people have the argument that good earnings, or in other words, good news, is actually going to make the price drop. However, my argument with that is a little bit different, and here is why. Before I get into my argument, though, we need to talk about some of the other fundamentals, as I stated a little bit earlier. So today's range for AMC stock, $31.57 to $33.58. The 52-week range, $1.91 to $72.62. The price change year to date, 1,442% roughly. And then the price change within the last 4 weeks, here we have the negative percentage, negative 6.46%. This will probably change with the earnings week. That is why we were talking about earnings in the first place, right? Because this negative number will hopefully turn back into positive. And so the 50-day average volume, this is extremely important. What will happen on the earnings? Will there be a lot of volume near the earnings announcement? Who knows? My guess is that before earnings, there probably will not be a lot of volume unless there's going to be something called an earnings run up. However, with AMC stock, it is a little bit different because everyone is actually very confused. And we are going to be talking about what some institutions are thinking about AMC stock, and they have their own estimates and their own guesses for how AMC stock is going to be doing fundamentally. So the 50-day average volume, really important, 186,216,100 volume. And so the shares outstanding, 501.8 million shares outstanding. The float is 496.8 million. The IPO date, December 18th of 2013. The investment bank Citigroup. And so this is the percentage that the management owns. This is 1%. I do not believe this includes institutions and corporations just because we know that there are so many institutions that actually have AMC stock in their portfolio. We know that there are a lot of ETFs, for example, the IWM. The IWM is a small cap index fund and it has a majority of AMC shares, so therefore this number does not make sense if we are talking about other institutions and other corporations. Rather, I think this is just the management of AMC stock, the company, and not other companies. And so the PE ratio is 0. The dividend yield, 0.4%. I didn't even know that they offer dividend, but I guess they do. That would be 0.4%. And so the alpha, 2.35. Beta, negative 2.76. The earnings per share due date, guys, very important, August 9th of 2021. The earnings per share percent change from last quarter. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit more important. 36%. And so the 3-year earnings per share growth rate, 0%. I'm not sure why it's at 0%. And so the earnings per share estimated change from the current year is at 0%. I still do not understand why this is at 0%. And so the sales percent change from last quarter, this is also very important. The sales percent change is going to be at negative 84%. If we can get these numbers at a much better percentage, that is why I think AMC stock might have a high probability of actually going higher in share price, or in other words, increasing in share price after the earnings. Now, again, I'm going to be talking about that argument in just a few seconds because a lot of people are confused. What is going to happen to the share price? And so the 3-year sales growth rate, negative 44%. What happens when AMC stock decides to increase with this, and instead of going to the negatives, it actually decides to go to the positives or more towards the positives, right? What if this goes from negative 44% to, let's say, negative 20%? Now, that is just an example, but you guys already understand that that would be amazing news for AMC. And so the debt percentage, that would be 0. I'm not sure why it's at 0 because I do believe that they have quite a little bit of debt. And so the market cap for the stock is $16 billion. and then the pre-tax margin is going to be at negative 150%. And so obviously AMC is a movie theater chain, and so they have industry group rank of 161. I'm not really sure what this means, but I guess that might be their rank. And so with all this being said, what are the most important takeaways? Right over here, earnings per share due date August 9th, percent change, 36% from last quarter. If this number continues to go higher and higher, in other words, the change gets better and better, obviously AMC stock will have a much better fundamental story to it, and so therefore that might be a good catalyst to increase the share price. And then we mentioned this briefly, but the sales percent change, the more positive this number gets, the better. Same goes with the 3-year sales growth rate, the more positive, the better. And so ultimately, now we are going to be talking about the two scenarios that could work for AMC stock. And so this article says why earnings season could be great for AMC Entertainment, in other words, ticker symbol AMC. Before we talk about what this article has to say, here are the two scenarios for AMC. The first scenario is AMC stock decides to have a run-up before earning. In other words, the share price would increase right before earnings, which is on August 9th, after hours. In other words, after the market closes around 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, with this being said, AMC stock right now did not have an earnings run-up. Quite frankly, AMC stock is actually slightly down on the day, and as you guys understood from just a few minutes ago, AMC stock within these last 4 weeks has been down roughly 6%. And so with earnings run-ups, what actually happens is after the company decides to release their earnings, the stock or the underlying equity decides to go down after the earnings are announced. However, AMC stock did not have that happen. No earnings run up. That is why scenario 2, in my opinion, may be more possible for AMC. Now, here is scenario 2. Scenario 2 is going to be consistent of AMC or any underlying equity actually having a downfall in share price before the earnings because, quite frankly, no one knows how to fundamentally value this stock. No one really has a lot of expectations, and so therefore the share price decreases before earnings. However, this article talks about how there are actually a lot of institutions and corporations that are quite bullish on AMC stock and what the fundamentals are going to be for this quarter. In other words, for the second quarter. And so with that being said, because there was no earnings anticipation before the actual earnings were announced, that would allow AMC stock or any underlying equity that after the earnings would be announced, the share price of that underlying equity, in this case it would be AMC stock, to increase in share price after the earnings. And so again, that may be the more possible situation for AMC stock just because we did not get that earnings run up. Rather, we actually got an earnings run down. And so right now it says that investors are always looking for stocks that are probably going to beat earnings, and AMC may be one of those companies. And that is because AMC right now is having a high likelihood of beating their earnings estimate. And with that being said, a lot of investors are raising their estimates right before earnings. Guys, this is very important. In fact, the most accurate estimate for the current quarter is currently at a loss of 81 cents per share for AMC stock. This means that more investors are becoming more bullish for AMC stock. And so why is this important? Well, given that AMC has a Zacks rank of number 3, investors may want to consider the stock ahead of earnings. And so that right there is actually quite bullish. Zacks rank is actually number 3 for AMC. In other words, this research firm decided to have AMC in the top 3 of its list. And in other words, AMC is in a bullish territory right now. Clearly, recent earnings estimate revision suggests that good things are ahead for AMC and that a beat might be in the cards for the upcoming report. This right here is absolutely amazing for this stock. And so with that being said, there may be that high likelihood and that high chance that AMC decides to have an increase in share price after AMC decides to announce their earnings, simply because we had that downside before earnings, or in other words, that earnings run down. And so after, we may have that earnings run up once the earnings are announced. And so Zacks Research, they're a research firm, and obviously they rank AMC stock for being bullish. So with that being said, AMC stock family, thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.